Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed since last week. Rolling thunder. Every Memorial Day weekend, the highways around here are choked with motorcycles. They come from all over the country, riding through here on their way to Washington, D.C., and since supposedly it's all done to raise awareness for prisoners of war and the missing in action, I'm supposed to feel bad for hating it. But I do hate it. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's inconvenient, and there must be thousands of better ways to raise awareness and help out POWs and MIAs than jumping on your loud-ass motorcycle and riding it to the nation's capital. Hey, I have a pickup truck. Maybe I could get together with a bunch of other people who drive pickup trucks and we could all run to the nation's capital. Can we do that as long as we say it's for a good cause? Or no, I have an even better idea. Why don't I just wander the streets of my neighborhood here, walking up and down the sidewalk, screaming into people's windows with a megaphone? For the vets! I wonder if Sarah Palin would want to get in on that. Creationist theme park in Kentucky to be taxpayer funded. So let me make sure I've got this straight. Moderate, modernist Muslims wanting to build a community center 2 blocks from the former site of the Twin Towers in Manhattan, bad. Backwards fundamentalist Christians getting taxpayer funding to subsidize as much as 25% of the cost of their Noah's Ark theme park, good. Have I got that? The Ark Encounter Park is being built by Answers in Genesis, and they're the same ministry that brought us the Creation Museum a few years ago. Oh, but they insist that the Ark Encounter Park will not be dedicated to promoting their feeble literalist biblical interpretation, but rather the mainstream Christian version of the Noah's Ark story. Well, oh, what am I complaining about then? MacGyver had an anti-gun message? Conservative commentator and cultural alarmist Ben Shapiro has a new book coming out, Primetime Propaganda, in which he makes the shocking, unprecedented argument that Hollywood has a liberal bias. Oh! What's he going to tell me next? That there are moral lessons embedded in Aesop's fables? I realize that trumped-up outrage is the stock in trade, the going commodity, if you will, of conservative media these days, but come on. Shapiro had to dig this dead horse up before he could beat it. One of his most stunning revelations is that the TV show MacGyver had an anti-gun message.
I hate heights, and I despise guns.
Well, what rifle do you recommend?
Well, let's see.
We've got a good selection of semi-automatics here. Any of them are just the thing.
No! Don't you have enough guns? What do you need another one for?
I see. You're one of those.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Well, that is about 1,000 guns that nobody is going to use on anybody else.
Yeah, 1,000 down. Only 100 million to go.
You think? I don't know if it's there. It's pretty subtle. Morgan Spurlock wouldn't bother pushing against this open door. Ben Shapiro, on the other hand, is charging it with a battering ram. DC Comics is rebooting everything. Again. I don't care about restarting every title back at #1. I don't care about rewinding the timeline a few years to make the characters younger. I don't even care about rewriting the origin stories for the umpteenth time. The company line is that they're doing this to try to freshen things up for a contemporary audience. But, you know, you can only reset the universe so many times before that gimmick in and of itself is so stale that it's incapable of freshening up anything. You want to rejuvenate your line of comics, DC? Here's a tip from a lifelong comic fan. Hire good writers and good artists who have stories to tell and let them tell whatever stories they want. Shit can all the gimmicky sales stunts and crossovers, and just hire good storytellers and put them in charge of telling good stories. The way things stand now, that won't just seem fresh, that will seem revolutionary. People who presume strangers are just like them. I was standing in line at the pharmacy the other day, and I struck up a conversation with the older gentleman standing in line ahead of me, and we talked pleasantly for a while about the weather, and you know, I think that day they were calling for thunderstorms and hail. And then the old fella said, "I think the Lord must be mad at us. That's why he's sending all this nasty weather our way." And I didn't say anything. And then he said, "You know, because we're taking him out of the schools and we're taking his name, we're trying to take his name off the money. I think he's getting kind of fed up with us." And I still didn't say anything, because you hear that kind of talk all the time. And then he said, "Or maybe it's just that God doesn't like Democrats." And at that point, the pharmacist called him up, and it was his turn in line. I didn't get to say anything back to him, but I was going to say, well, if that's the case, God has lousy aim. Because if he's targeting Democrats, Washington County, Maryland is one of the last places he should pick. It bothered me that the guy assumed that I felt exactly the same way that he did. It didn't bother me, it didn't offend me so much that, you know, he wasn't able to tell just from one look at me that if I wasn't necessarily a capital D Democrat, that I certainly was the furthest thing from a Republican or a conservative. What bothered me was that he just assumed that I, a stranger who he didn't know from Adam, to coin a phrase, must have the exact same political beliefs and philosophy that he did. Now, it happens that my wife is a Democrat, and even though I am registered unaffiliated, I usually wind up voting Democrat most of the time. And one of the things I've noticed after all these years I've spent on the internet is that there are lots and lots of people in the world who disagree with me on shit. In fact, I would say most people disagree with me on something. And one of the great joys of my life the last few years has been finding and engaging with those people and striking up friendships with people who think differently than I do. Because, strangely enough, most of them are really nice people once you get to know them. And getting to know them becomes a whole lot easier when you don't live your life as though they don't exist. The hardest part is only picking 5. See you next time.